Hello ladies and gents, and welcome back to part 3 of my 6 essential grammar points for CAE. Today we're going to be looking at distancing, okay, and this is over the last few years it has become incredibly important, especially if you are a follower of the news, if you read newspapers, if you follow the news on television, you will often see distancing being used, okay. Now, the application for this is going to be through speaking and writing in principle. In your use of English, that type of thing, it's not going to appear so much, and probably it's not so relevant for the listening either. But yeah, for speaking and writing, you're probably going to need to demonstrate this at some point, okay? Now, the reason we use this is to separate ourselves from the information that we are giving, okay? That's why I said it's very, very typical to see this in the media, because they don't want to get sued or legally prosecuted by whoever it is they're reporting on. And the reason that happens, it's a thing called libel. And when you report incorrect information about somebody or something, sometimes they will take a legal case against you, okay? So to avoid that, through newspapers and television programs, they use distancing language, which disconnects them from the information they are giving. And sometimes we do this in everyday conversation as well. So stay tuned, we're going to be looking at 3 or 4 ways of using distancing in our language. Okay, so we'll start quite simply with a couple of verbs here. I'm sure you're familiar with them. They are seem and appear. Okay. Now these 2 verbs, just by using these verbs, we are separating ourselves from the information. Let's take a quick look. In the first sentence I put on the board, I say, Robert is unhappy. Now if I say Robert is unhappy, I sound very sure of myself. I sound like I'm 100% certain that Robert is unhappy. However, if I'm not 100% certain, I would probably use a verb like seem. You need to use an impersonal subject with it as well. So it'd be, it seems Robert is unhappy, okay, because I'm not sure. The second sentence I've used is, she's going to quit her job, all right? And using appear, it appears she's going to quit her job, all right? So again, if you're not sure, you'd be using this structure. And it can get you out of a lot of difficult problems and a lot of difficult arguments, because you're communicating that you are not 100% sure of this information. Now, to make it a little bit more distant and a little bit more formal as well, you can use the structures would seem or would appear. Okay, you'd probably do this more in a written piece than actually speaking. Appear and seem, as I've done in the first examples here, they are probably going to be more for speaking. All right. Okay, so we're going to continue in just a couple of seconds. Okay, let's look at the second part, which is going to be using passive structures in combination with reporting verbs. Now, the passive by design is quite a distant structure because we are focusing more on the object than the subject, and it's particularly applicable here. So let's take a look. The structure we're going to use is going to be it, followed by a verb in the passive, and then we're going to introduce our clause using that. So that and then the clause. The verbs that we're going to use in passive, I'll give you some of the typical examples, are say, believe, hope, think and expect. I mean, you could maybe use suggest in there as well. There's probably a couple more that I've omitted, but these are the principal ones. And you can see here in the first example sentence, I've said, it is said that X, we don't name political parties on this channel, is going to win the election, okay? So if I say this, I'm communicating that this is not necessarily my opinion, but the opinion of the greater public or people just in general, okay? Second example I've got here is, it is hoped that Santa Claus will come to Mataroa this Christmas, all right? Again, this is not specifically my opinion, although I do hope Santa Claus will come, but I'm referring more to the opinion of the general populace, the general public and the people in general, okay? So using this structure, it is incredibly important that we do this sometimes because we're speaking about public opinion, not necessarily our personal opinions. And again, this will help you to avoid legal problems and arguments with your friends. Okay, and just to conclude, ladies and gents, we're going to look at a couple of useful phrases that will help you out as well. So the first one we've got here is a little bit of a politically motivated phrase, according to. Okay, now you use this when you are stating that the information is coming from another person. So if you're passing the blame for something, or if you are trying to incriminate someone else sometimes, then this is a useful phrase. So I would say, according to Sam, it's going to rain on Saturday. Okay, so what I'm communicating there is Sam has told me that it's going to rain on Saturday. All right, so the information is not coming from me, it's coming from somebody else. According to, a very dangerous phrase if you want to use it, but also very good if you want to get yourself out of trouble. Also, a very important word to use is apparently. You put this at the start or at the end, more typically at the start of a sentence, and you are automatically distancing yourself from what you say. So it's going to rain on Saturday. Apparently, it's going to rain on Saturday. Okay, so I'm automatically distancing myself from the information. And of course, an easier one, I'm sure you are aware of these verbs, the modal verbs may or might. Okay, so these verbs communicate possibility. So it may rain on Saturday, it might rain on Saturday. I'm not saying that it is 100% certain, but it's a possibility. All right, so that's a useful way as well of distancing yourself. I'm sure you know those verbs anyway. Just a quick note to finish with today, ladies and gentlemen. A few months ago, I did a video on how to plan your writing, how to plan your written parts of the exam for first certificate and for advanced. And one of the parts, I'll put the video at the end of this one, so you can go and have a look at it. Really important to plan. This is the type of thing, these phrases and things like distancing, that I would highly recommend you include in your plan, just to remind yourself to include it at some point. Because if not, you can easily forget, and it's just, you're going to lose points if you don't include things like this. It's such an easy way. None of this is complicated. I'm sure you may even know it before looking at this anyway. So take a look at that video as well. Just make sure you plan your writing as well as possible. Include things like distancing because they are super easy ways of gaining points and showing that you have an understanding of higher level English. Okay. So guys, once again, thanks as always for tuning in. If you have any questions or comments, please get in touch with me. I always do my best to try and get back to people. And yep, stay tuned for part 4, which will be coming soon. Thanks for tuning in, guys. See you later.